let's move to LaMar Morgan. This is a guy, Michigan's defensive backs coach, pass game coordinator. I want to have dinner with this guy. He said he goes out. He's a foodie. He's been to 50 establishments in Ann Arbor since he's arrived, 40 to 50. And he said he'll go order like $250, $300 worth of food and like get everything and try everything. So if anyone asks him, hey, what's good over at this place, he knows like 4 or 5 things. So I would love to partake in one of those if I ever get the invite. But he's another guy, like Anthony, you were talking about just how impressive Tony Alford was talking, and I'm sure you share the same view. LaMar Morgan can command a room too. He was awesome to talk to. And one of the most interesting things too, when you have another new position coach, I asked him what was his view of Michigan, obviously watching them the last couple of years under Jesse Minter defensively, because he had worked with Jesse at Vanderbilt in 2021. And he said it was clear as day that they played with a blue collar mentality, but not that they didn't have talent. He said some people think blue collar means you just don't have talent, you only work hard. He said it's a blue collar mentality with talented players. I thought it was a great way to put it. It's something kind of we've talked about over the last 3 years in different ways of how Michigan has risen to this point as a program. But I just thought, and he said, it kind of starts with Will Johnson, where he's this extremely talented guy, but he's said that Will Johnson's the ultimate teammate he's ever been around, where you kind of have this culture combined with talent, good coaching, just guys that know how to win. And that's why you've seen this successful run for Michigan over the last 3 years.
Yeah, the interesting thing, look how in great shape he is for eating all that food.
I know.
Right? Number one, I wonder if he's been to Mr. Spots. Did anybody ask him that? That should have been the first question.
True.
Cheesesteak and wings. We'll have to follow up on that. So, but when I heard the first time I heard anything about him, I thought this guy sounds like he'd be a great hire, right? Anybody that works with Jesse Minter and that Jesse Minter recommends to me is going to be a guy I want, because Jesse Minter is one of the best in the business. He's one of the best that we ever covered in terms of dealing with the media and giving answers. You know what? It was clear that he knew football. And so if he recommends him, then great. He's going to have his work cut out for him now, obviously, with Rod Moore not being involved, out with a knee injury. But there are still some pieces back there, guys, and I think he understands that. It's obviously going to come down to the other corner and to the safety depth. As fortunate as they were last year, guys, on the injury front, they're off to a bad start here this year, but that's how much more fortunate they're going to have to be this year, because the depth just isn't there right now. So, but I like what I heard from him as well. I thought the questions were great. I really believe that this defense is going to be special. I think that the back end is going to be a big part of it if they continue to play with that blue chip edge, that blue collar edge, right? And I think they will. I just think that the leadership back there, I look at the linebackers, everything I've heard about them. We know how good the defensive line is going to be if they stay healthy, and the defensive line sets the tone for everything else. So, guys, I was looking at that schedule. I just booked my flight to Washington, and hopefully you guys have done that too. And if not, then get on that, because we got some unbelievable games to cover this fall. And I usually don't wish my summers away, but with this team, this defense, and the schedule, I can't wait to see these guys in action.
Yeah, and part of it too is this is a defensive meeting room with Wink Martindale at the head of it, where you have, I believe, every single guy that has defensive coordinator experience. So for all the narratives about it, oh, well, Wink is the OG of the system, and this is Wink's defense, and gosh darn it, he's going to do it the way he wants to do it. There's a really good nucleus and exchange of ideas going on in that room too. So, I don't expect them to be, so fixed in what their what a philosophy is, or the best way to call the defense. I think there's going to be some decent check. Wink Martindale is the CEO of all of that. But yeah, LaMar Morgan was, the funny thing about talking to, really, we've spent the entire spring talking to pretty much brand new assistants, brand new coaching staff. You see the guy, at first they're a little, they're a little guarded, maybe a little nervous, but then, they really do get comfortable. And when you open up, you have guys that have, I think, good personalities and are very good teachers of football. So when you look at LaMar Morgan as the piece of that, that defensive staff, I think one of the bigger things we'll look at moving forward is who does succeed Wink Martindale if he decides to move on, go back to the NFL or retire, whatever it is. It's going to be interesting to see which guy emerges as maybe the front runner for that. But LaMar Morgan, to me, I could not have been more impressed. And it's you just see how he'll be able to connect with players, and just really good guy. And it was nice to get to know him yesterday.
Yeah, a couple other notes. He said Rod Moore, the day after he suffered the knee injury, he was the first guy in. He was sitting in the front row in every meeting. That he's been incredible. He said we can't call him Coach Moore because there already is a Coach Moore, but he's Coach Rod Moore, and he's been doing a great job helping his teammates. And obviously, like you said, CB, I mean, they're going to need guys to step up there depth-wise. And, but I think, look, I mean, Rod Moore, him being able to help those guys along, I think can be to their benefit. You already have Makari Page, Quentin Johnson. Both guys have played a lot of football, especially Page. And then I thought the interesting thing was, too, he mentioned different guys at corner. He said, we're rotating a bunch of guys through. That's what the spring's all about, that sort of thing, which is, to be expected. But then he's asked about Mikey Sainristil. Hey, who's going to replace Mikey Sainristil? And the first guy he said, and really the only guy he said in response to that question, was he thinks Zeke Berry could be, somebody in that role at nickel. Played safety throughout his career, his first 2 years, but hasn't really gotten the opportunity in games, was kind of passed up again by a lot of those guys that were the depth for Michigan last year at safety. But a guy that could kind of come into his own. Jade McBurrow's also repping there. We know Cody Jones is kind of, a nickel by trade, but I think Zeke Berry is one of the guys I'm most excited to watch next weekend in the spring game. He had a good spring game last year, just didn't see him a lot during the season.
Great athlete. And, I love those great athletes that can also play football. You got great athletes that aren't great football players, but I think that he's both. And I think he's got the potential anyway to be both. So, when Rod Moore went down, you're wondering what Keon Sabb was thinking. And, having transferred to Alabama, it's like, whatever. He's not here anymore. And as Rich Rodriguez says, the only thing that I'll ever quote Rich Rod on was, we only talk about the guys that play for Michigan. So we're going to talk about the guys that are still here, and one of those guys is Zeke Berry. I love him. I really like what I'm hearing about Makari Page, though, stepping up, and I think people are overlooking him as a potential difference maker back there. No, he doesn't. Does he have the instincts that Rod Moore had? No, but who does, right? We're talking about a guy who just. Like Marcus Ray, right, who was always, seemed to know where the football was going, and but they're all going to benefit from having a guy like Will Johnson back there as a corner to help take away half the field, and then you can take some chances as a safety. So to me, it's a strong room. Quentin Johnson coming back is absolutely huge. The people that we've talked to that have been at practice say he's an absolute rock in terms of just being a leader on that team. They think there's no question he's going to be a captain. He's the old man in the room now. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, they're going to be fine. They're going to be better than fine. I need one more corner probably to step up in that Josh Wallace role. DJ Waller, I think, has been banged up a little bit from what we've heard. So, but if they can find somebody back there, guys, again, this defense is going to be really, really tough to move on.
Yeah, the hype around Zeke Berry, I'm happy to see, because he was a guy that last year that I think he dealt with an injury in fall camp, and you're maybe looking at him last year being a breakout player. Maybe he's the guy that winds up being that third safety instead of Keon Sabb. So, to me, it's going to be really interesting to see if he can stay healthy. That, is it in a safety role? Is it in the nickel role? I think they've got some good battles there. And I know last year they had to kind of dip into the portal to grab Josh Wallace. I don't necessarily know that they'll need to do that this year. I think they like Jair Hill. I think they like DJ Waller, again, assuming good health. Another body couldn't hurt, probably at pretty much every spot on defense, but I think they're in a really healthy position there on that side of the ball.
Keyshawn Harris also got a mention at corner, a sixth year who, he's not the most dynamic guy in the world. He's very fast based on, being a track athlete that he started his career at Michigan, but he's a guy that I think you can trust there if you had to go, and use some of your depth.